You are listening to the Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Totally Drunk, Spider, and Slambo.
Yeah, that my intro was way loud on my end for whatever reason, but that is what it is. Hey guys, welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with data and all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 55, we're going to go around the league discussing the latest Overwatch League news. We'll also be taking a look at all of the rumored rosters and sign-ins for the original 12 Overwatch League teams, but before we can do that, and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight for our live show on Twitch, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners. Of course, as always, I have someone here with me tonight to help break everything down. It's another week without my soulmates, and you know, there is one bright spot, and that is the fact that in a couple of weeks, I'm going to attempt to pull him out of the abyss when I am in Vegas. Whether or not I will be successful with that, I don't know, but I'm going to try my damnedest, and we'll just go from there. But joining me tonight is the ham-fisted taco himself, Spider. And Spider, you know, it's a short record week. We have quite a bit of news, or I'm not going to say quite a bit of news. Some of it's like sprinkled into the original 12 teams. But, you know, we just had a Tier 2 tournament that went down this past weekend. We got a new interview with Nate Nanzer. We got some World Cup changes in regards to a certain favorite roster. And, you know, some other things, competitive season winding down. But how has your week been?
I mean, like you said, it was a pretty short week, since I last talked to you, and it's been pretty exciting. I actually caught a bird in my house and let that go. Played real life Pokemon, as we were joking. I played a good amount of Overwatch. I finally sat down, did my placements, placed 38-15. So I'm just slowly climbing up. Thanks to the meta, who knew that my best heroes being a meta would allow me to do better than normal. And then I got to watch, that pro Overwatch that I was jonesing for in the, the tier 2 beat invitational, which provided us with a lot of, insights into the new meta, what, teams think will be good, what doesn't work, because there were definitely some instances of that. And, sadly, our boys, for Last Night Leftovers, couldn't clinch it out at the end because Toronto Esports looked a little too strong. But it was a fun weekend, and here we are. We're going to talk about the original teams. We're going to update you on all that stuff. So we got a lot to talk about, even though there wasn't a super heavy news week. But that, I have a feeling, is going to change very quickly over this next week, if today is any indication.
I mean, it's gonna change as soon as, late tonight when Shanghai officially announces their new roster. We got Toronto hosting an event here this week, the unveiling party, which they did confirm that they are going to do a stream of that event. So, we'll still be in the know whenever that stuff is going down. Atlanta teased tomorrow some sort of announcement, so we might be expecting a little bit of something there as well. So even leading up to BlizzCon, it seems like there's going to be some new information coming out in regards to the expansion teams. Now, that being said, obviously we're gonna have a lot more news ramping up to BlizzCon because of that, and we are planning on doing 2 megasodes between Overwatch League Network and Heroes Never Die. So both of those recordings will be these next 2 Mondays, with those episodes dropping on both of those podcast feeds. But that being said, we gotta jump into this Nate Nanzer interview because there's definitely something big to note in regards to the schedule. But he sat down with Sun Online to talk about the Overwatch League ahead of its second season. So first up, he was talking about the World Cup. And how that's a good advert to competitive Overwatch. So, they've seen a lot of success with the World Cup here these past few years, And for a lot of people out there, that's kind of been what's brought competitive Overwatch to the forefront from them. Because, I know some podcasters even who, didn't really watch, any tournaments or things like that, and the World Cup was like their first taste of competitive Overwatch, and now they're like diehard Overwatch League fans. So, on top of that, the World Cup really is just on a global scale to the sense that the exposure level is a lot higher than, say, like the Beat Invitational, for example. Like these other Tier 2 tournaments even include in the Path to Pro with, contenders and trials and all of that good stuff, just because, a lot more eyes are on the World Cup, because not only is it a break from the Overwatch League, but you also have a ton of these Overwatch League players that are playing in it, representing their home country. You also get to see, maybe some of these other regions that aren't, maybe don't get the same amount of love in regards to viewership, like, Australia and South America. We saw Brazil really putting up another good effort, which, didn't quite pan out as well as they had hoped, which, as we've talked about, like, Brazil's always kind of been, like, on the brink of breaking out, but they're not quite at the level of some of these other regions. But all in all, like, the World Cup is at the forefront. We got some changes to South Korea, which we'll talk about. But how important is, like, the World Cup to you in regards to, like, scouting these talents for the Overwatch League?
I think it's really important just because of what you said, the fact that we get to see some regions that we don't normally get to see play on a stage, in a capacity that we don't normally get to see. So, like you said, Brazil. I can think even like smaller regions like Japan. There were a lot of standout players from Japan this year that people are still talking about, like Tayu and it's gonna not prove my point because I forgot his name, but the tank. But Kenmo, that's what his name is. But yeah, I think Overwatch, and I think in this interview, he specifically states, like, Overwatch League is the prime time, but Overwatch World Cup is always going to be like that advertisement for the prime time. And I think teams will do well to look into World Cup for players, because there is a lot of talent out there that doesn't really get to shine because they don't really have the same level of, competitions. They don't have the same level of exposure, stuff like that. So I think, moving forward, I think the World Cup is a good, thing to have in the off season, because it does kind of shine a light on players in, regions that don't normally get it.
Absolutely. They also went on to discuss the current meta of Overwatch. And Nanzer said, like, there's really not been a meta since Overwatch came out that, people didn't complain about, kind of like go into beta days when there was no hero limit. You saw a lot of, like, double Winston, double Lucio, double McCree, and that was pretty much the meta at the time. And, of course, we've kind of seen that evolve, over, since launch, where now there's a one hero limit. Right now, the triple tank, triple support is still very common, but we see, like, Sombra, Doomfist, comps coming out. We still see, a little bit of Pharah. We've seen, the rise of Hitscan again, with the recent buffs to not only McCree, but Soldier 76 as well. Tracer is kind of falling out a little bit, since, one, you see a rise of McCree, because of the flashbang, to deal with, dive if there is dive. And also, there is Brigitte as well. But Tracer is not as prominent in this current meta. And, Nanzer was saying, like, he feels like the meta right now is pretty interesting in the sense that, we're kind of in this stage where, it is a lot of counter picking. And it seems like every time that people perceive like there's only one way to play the game, you have a team coming out that's doing something completely different. I believe it was one of the trials teams in China was running like a triple DPS comp, and they've just been kind of like run-shotting through people. We saw Goats, obviously, named after the team because they were the ones that really first brought that in. And sure, like, the EU scene kind of did, like, tank-heavy stuff prior, but Goats was the team that really brought the triple tank, triple support to the forefront. And, of course, we saw kind of how that's played out with that team in particular, because they've fallen off quite a great deal. But all in all, like, the meta over time, has evolved, and sure, there's been times in the past where, maybe players feel like we've been on a meta for too long. Mercy meta, probably the prime example in this case. But like, how are you feeling about the current meta, knowing that there's so much versatility in regards to the team compositions that we're seeing?
I think right now is probably the best meta we've ever had, and I'm not just saying that because I primarily play hit scan. Okay, there's a little bit of that, but every support is viable in most situations. We're seeing a lot of Ana. We're seeing, Moira come out. We're seeing Lucio. We're still seeing a little bit of Mercy on certain types of maps. And I think that's the way it should be. And I feel like it's almost that way with every category except for tanks. I feel like tanks are the one category where it's pretty stagnant. Like it's very dependent on what the rest of your team is running. Whereas there isn't a lot of interchange. Like you can run different DPS with different setups, but if you're gonna run, like say you run Doomfist Sombra, then you're almost locked into Winston Diva or Hammond Diva, but most people opt for Winston Diva because they want that dive. So I feel like tanks are the only thing that need a little bit of love, and I feel like BlizzCon might possibly fix that depending on what they announce. But overall, I think the meta is the most diverse it's ever been. And, if you just go back and watch the Beat Invitational, we saw a variety of different compositions. Like even Jane tweeted out today, he's like, man, NA Overwatch in 2018. And it was like Orisa, Sombra, Doomfist, Lucio, Ana. It was just like this weird ass like comp. It was a transition comp, by the way. So it wasn't an actual comp, but it's just funny to see that, these different heroes are getting played in these ways. And I think that's really good. And I hope that continues. And, people will always complain about it because, like when Mercy fell out of the graces, all the people who played Mercy were upset. And rightfully so, because you put hundreds and hundreds of hours into this hero, and now you have to learn other heroes. And that's kind of why I like to just play every hero. And, I'm not the best at any hero, but I like to, spread the love. And I feel like more people should do that. They should not invest in one single hero, but, everybody does their own thing. And I'm not going to fault you for that. I've played with Symmetra mains in Masters, do what you want to do what you have to have fun, but you have to understand that, it's not always going to be optimal. And I feel like that's where people complain, is they're like, oh, my character is no longer the best pick. But right now, almost every character is a pick. So, and it, like, I don't feel like any character right now is a throw pick. So, I feel like that makes it the best meta we've ever had.
Absolutely. So Nancer would go on to discuss home markets within the Overwatch League. And he says, like, we obviously feel really good about North America. Asia feels really good, too, since they have 5 teams there. There's still only 2 teams in Europe, so that's where their focus is going to be in regards to going into Season 3. Now, that being said, we've already heard the gripes about Europe and the amount of teams there, and it's... At the end of the day, it comes down to the investors. And the investors aren't there, there's not going to be teams there. Because otherwise, you're going to have to basically, bring an organization directly to that market. And, I highly doubt you'll see, like, Overwatch League paying for someone to relocate to, just move their entire headquarters to wherever in Europe. That's not going to happen. So it comes down to the EU investors, but they want to get more teams in Europe. Now, that being said, he did go back to, what their, big brain long-term goal was, that being to have 28 teams globally. Going into Season 2, we have 20 teams, so, we're getting there. But most importantly, I wanted to bring this up solely for one advert of this, and that is the fact that when he was talking about North America, he talked about one big city that does not have a team yet. I wonder what big city that could have been that, maybe Edonar and we've been talking about, since day one. Chicago. I mean, come on. So Chicago is definitely a market that they want to be in, and it should have been in Season 2 if it wasn't for, stinking Atlanta and their airports and, Washington.
I would more blame the 3 Chinese teams than more NA teams.
Well, China has that money. And they also need to
Well.
have that many opportunities to get it right.
That many opportunities to win a game.
Yeah, but speaking of Europe, something that they did note was they want to try to make the schedule friendlier for EU fans. Right now they do a pretty good job in regards to programming for Asia with that 8 p.m. Pacific time slot, but Europe is kind of like the odd duckling of this group because, a lot of the times, like, these matches are starting at, like, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. In the morning, so what they're looking at doing is having time slots that are going to be more friendly for Europe, in a sense that, the weekends are probably the best opportunity to do that. So right now they're looking at doing Saturday and potentially Sunday. So who knows? Like, we might see them starting earlier in the day, which would make it more like primetime viewing in regards to Europe. So with that being said, like, we know that Season 2 is starting on a Thursday. It's starting on Valentine's Day for next year. And, we kind of talked about, well, does that mean that we're just doing 3 days? Are we doing 4 days? Is this just a one-time thing? But it seems like they definitely are entertaining the idea of having Overwatch League on Sundays. So it's lasting the entirety of the weekend, plus Thursday. I don't. Where do you sit with this? Because we've kind of have it engraved in our minds already. Well, okay, Overwatch League is Wednesday through Saturday, but now it could be taking up your entire weekend as opposed to just 2 of the days.
I mean, if you look at traditional esports, they typically run all weekend anyway. So it was a little strange that they opted for Wednesday through Saturday rather than Thursday through Sunday to begin with. And I feel like maybe that's just something they learned. Like, maybe the numbers on Wednesday weren't what they were looking for, where they look at other events like, Overwatch World Cup or any of the, Beat Invitational or anything really. They have access to at least general viewership numbers, and they'll see that maybe Sunday is a better chance for them to pick up viewers, and it also extends, goodwill over to EU. So if they put on matches, say Sunday morning at like 9:30 a.m., EU, that's going to be prime time for EU, and then they can watch those matches, and we can still watch them as well. So it really depends, what they opt for. But I think moving Thursday through Sunday is probably the better plan, rather than the Thursday through Saturday, which they were running. Because I can tell you, like, there was a lot of Wednesday games I missed just because it was in the middle of the week, and I'm like, dude, I got to go to work tomorrow. I got all kinds of stuff. Kids have stuff to do, like activities. So Wednesday was a bad day, and not that Thursday or Friday can be much better, but at least it's not in the middle of the week.
Absolutely. And for me, like, I want them to go Thursday through Sunday, if for only one reason. That's the fact that it would not impact my podcast schedule. that's what we need to build a schedule around, is what we're doing here. 100%.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that, and I'll be thanking you a lot more once we actually have a team in Chicago. But for now, no dice. But anyways, he wants to go on to talk about his main challenge for the Overwatch League going into Season 2, and really, like, the mission for the Overwatch League is to build a forever league. Well, there's definitely one thing that needs to happen in order for that to actually come to fruition, and one, that's that Overwatch needs to kind of remain in the forefront. We see a lot of teams start to, wane on, popularity over time. Like, right now, Fortnite is still taking up a lot of, like, Twitch viewership. They're pushing their in-game tournaments. Overwatch. I'm surprised they still haven't done it.
Dumb rule sets.
Yeah, that's besides the point. But you have other games that are kind of like beating them to the punch. But in order for the league to succeed, you also need to see more love being brought to the Path to Pro scene. And all we've heard about for a while now is that changes are coming for next year. We still have not heard any sort of details on how they're going to try to strengthen the Path to Pro scene. But there's been like very few instances where we have seen someone go from Path to Pro, straight into the Overwatch League. In regards to like the bare bottom of Path to Pro. Now that being said, in the off season for the Overwatch League, we have seen a lot of talent being signed, either moved from academy teams or just getting picked up straight from an academy team, depending on if they were traded or not. We've had call-ups, we've had trades, all of that good stuff. But do you want to shy away from the term Forever League? Shouldn't we just focus right now on getting to that global league status that they've really been vying for since day one?
No, I think it's a good idea to kind of put that out there that that's what they're building for, if for no other reason than it kind of reassures investors that they're like, oh, okay, they're definitely planning for the long term. Like he's clearly saying they're looking for the long term. Whether or not that actually happens, who knows? But in the end, it doesn't hurt to say it. You do more damage if you said, we're really focused on maintaining the league over the next 5 years. Well, okay, cool. But when you're investing $60 million, maybe you want to plan for more than 5 years. So I think just saying they're planning for a Forever League, isn't going to hurt anything. And I think, behind the scenes, they're absolutely focused on that anyway. Like they're focused on, ramping up, to teams playing in their home stuff. And, he kind of says that earlier in the thing. So, this is kind of the grand send off of like, okay, well, here's your chance to talk big, which is, you can say whatever you want about Nate Nazar, but he can sell Overwatch League to anybody because he knows how to up talk it to anybody. And I think that's why he does these interviews. And I think, there wasn't a whole lot of information in this interview overall that we didn't know or we didn't expect. But it looks good. It sounds good. And it just kind of keeps Overwatch League in our minds. So now whenever we're watching it, we're like, okay, well, what's Overwatch League going to be like in 10 years? Just because he did say it was going to be a Forever League. And good for him. I mean, I absolutely stand by what I've said earlier about Nate Nazar. Is whether you feel strongly like you like him or dislike him, he's absolutely the right person for that job right now because he can sell Overwatch League.
Just not to Europe.
Well, he can sell it. People actually have to have the money there to buy it. And I can go into a 10-minute long rant of why there isn't money in Europe to buy teams, but I'll boil it down to it's a lot harder to get funding in Europe because there are so many different countries. Economics. Look it up.
Yeah, blame economics for the lack of Europe representation in the Overwatch League. But anyways, BlizzCon is right around the corner, and with that, we are going to have, the World Cup top 8. And, there's a certain team that is trying to meta-proof themselves ahead of the quarter-final matches. So, that is South Korea. They've made some roster swaps. So, they have swapped out 3 members of the Nuric Excelsior. So, they swapped out Sabiolbi, they swapped out Meko, as well as Arc, and in their place, you have Fleta from the Seoul Dynasty, Fury from the London Spitfire, and Animo from, NYXL, so, they at least kept one of them intact, so there is that. But the World Cup will return with the top 8 at BlizzCon that begins on November 2nd. And, in that quarterfinal matches, South Korea is going up against Australia, which I hate to say it, like there's just that's a 4-0.
That's gonna be
it's a oof.
Yeah, that will probably be a tough one to watch unless Australia really surprises us. But I mean, this isn't huge news if you follow the meta and you kind of look at where teams are moving to. Normally when a team would make like this kind of change this close to the competition, you would worry a little bit. But the fact that it's South Korea and the caliber of these players anyway, I'm not super worried about it. Like you can tell it's mostly driven by meta. And rather than like behind the scenes drama or any of that stuff. Like there may be some of that, particularly with Arc for for Anemo. Like, that seems like a strange change just because of Ark's synergy with Jonak. Whereas Anemo didn't really have that. But they must see something in Anemo over Ark that, we haven't seen yet, because we didn't get to see Anemo play a lot. But like, when you look at like SBB versus Fleta is probably the better choice in this meta. You don't really need a Widowmaker or a Tracer specialist, and Fleta is capable of playing Widowmaker while playing Pharah, while playing Genji, so he's much more flexible. And I actually feel like Meko versus Fury is a good pick, even if you don't look at the meta, because I actually argued that Meko was the weaker point in NYXL's lineup, and I always stood by Fury as one of the best off tanks in the league. Right. So I think that's just a pure upgrade. And meta helps too.
Yeah, he does provide a better Zarya.
Correct.
Between the two.
So I think all around, all these changes make sense. I don't feel like there's a lot of drama involved in this. I feel like this is a very calculated, like very South Korean move. Like, we're going to put our best players for this meta in, and that's why we kept them on the roster.
It's pretty much a case of, South Korea's committee hearing, like, all this buzz about how, oh, this is going to be the year United States is going to topple South Korea. And they're like, nah, dog, we're meta-proofing right now. We're going to put an end to that. And, yeah, I mean, in some cases, like, yeah, Ark and Anemo, that's pretty much like a side trade. We're not seeing a whole lot of Mercy in this meta outside of, Farm Mercy comps, which we do see from time to time. But, like, I feel like Anemo we didn't quite see enough of him in the Overwatch League. But, the stats that he did put up were very comparable to that of Ark. But, Ark is the Undying, and whether or not, the support is going to see an increase with Anemo in the lineup, we will just have to wait and see. But all in all, this is going to be a better-looking South Korean team. You're going to lose a little bit of synergy, maybe, since you don't have as many pieces of NYXL. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, just because when you look at SBB not being in this lineup, you're still able to hit all of the different roles that you would need in the game right now for this meta. And then on top of that, Fleta, Fleta with a Pharah is going to be a key thing in this current landscape. But that being said, we're not going to have the Sinatra, SBB, Tracer 1v1, if there was going to be Tracer play. But at least, Sinatra just won't auto-blame SBB for his lackluster performance. Or who knows, maybe he'll just play Reinhardt and, we'll just defeat everyone with triple tank, triple support. You never know.
We'll have to see. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be Jonak killing him on Ana, and he'll say, "Man, Jonak's unfair to play against."
That could be. And if you're playing Pharah too, like, you're gonna have a bad time. Don't peek at all. Yeah, you're just gonna shot out of the sky. Yeah, that's definitely gonna be a bad thing to take a look at. But anyways, our main discussion for tonight is we're going to look at the original 12 teams from Season 1 of the Overwatch League, kind of go through the current roster landscape and, any sort of rumored sign-ins, any official sign-ins, because there have been a couple. So, we'll just go top to bottom in regards to alphabetical order, just because, it just makes it easier. Let's start with Boston Uprising. So Boston have actually just made a roster move, and they have added a player from Gladiators Legion. That would be the LA Gladiators Academy team. Not that I should need to say that, because it's kind of implied in the title.
Gladiators.
Yeah. But Uprising have added Blaze to their roster. So Blaze has a hero pool of Doomfist, which is by far my favorite hero that he plays, and has had the biggest impact. He also plays Genji, Junkrat, and Hanzo. So when we look at the current landscape of this roster, they have Gamzu and Note as their tank line. In the rumor mill, again, unofficial. We'd like to use that word because we're in that time frame right now. Unconfirmed. Axiom. Looking at DPS, they have Striker and Blaze, both confirmed. Rumored right now is Color Hex. We'll make note of that here in a second. And then for supports, they have Kelix and Aimgod. And then rumored is Neko from the New York Excelsior. So looking at this Boston squad, we brought up Color Hex. This is a player that is currently on Toronto Esports. That is Uprising's academy team, who actually just won, beat Invitational Season 5 against our boys at LNL. That was a 4-2 finals. And Color Hex was acquired from Sydney Drop Bears, who by far are the best team in Australia. One of the less represented regions in Overwatch today. But Australia also did make the World Cup, so there is that. But anyways, that was last
Briefly.
month. Yeah. So if signed to the main roster, this would actually be the first sign-in of a New Zealand player in the Overwatch League. Now, what's important to note here is that over this past weekend, during the Beat Invitational, Color Hex did not play for Toronto Esports. They were running Askin, who is an absolute monster DPS. And, we saw that firsthand. That McCree play was absolutely ridiculous. His Widow, too. But, Color Hex wasn't there. So, I don't want to speculate too much just because Askin might have just been like a trial player. Maybe they were just playing him over Color Hex. But Color Hex does provide Widowmaker, Pharah, and Genji. And then Axiom, who is also on Toronto Esports, has served as a team's main tank. Now, that being said, Boston last season was kind of like a team that was looking for, players that they felt like could be developed into, some high-tier players. And, they were definitely under the, under the boots of the community. A lot of people just looked at that roster and be like, really? That's what you're going for? And then, there was a bit of drama in between, but they had an undefeated
A little bit.
stage at one point, which didn't really work out so well in that playoffs. But for the most part, they're going to have a new look DPS line. They're bringing in Blaze, potentially Color Hex. And, for the most part, like, Kelix in the Mercy meta looked good. Outside of that, maybe not so much. So when we're looking at these rumored signings, like, what sort of impact would you expect to see from a player like Neko and a player like Color Hex?
Well, I think Color Hex is definitely what they need. They need somebody that is very versatile. I think Blaze is good, and I think he kind of fills that, but I feel like Color Hex just accentuates that because Striker never really wowed me outside of his Tracer play. He was a serviceable Widow, but they kind of opted to run Mistakes on Widow over him, so that enough speaks to me that he isn't confident enough on Widow to play against the top Widows of the league. And I feel like Color Hex is what this team needs because the team in Stage 4 was severely lacking in DPS. Like Mistakes wasn't doing it, Striker wasn't doing it, and that's really where they struggled in Stage 4. Whereas in their undefeated stage, their DPS was popping off. Like Striker was able to carry on Tracer. Mistakes was doing really well on Widow, and that was the key to them winning. That opened up Gamsu to be a little free. Note has always been a very good off tank, and the support line was serviceable. So I feel like, back to your question, bringing in Neko would be a big help to this team as well. I don't think it's as big of a help as Color Hex would be, because both Kelix and Aim God are serviceable supports. So as long as you have above average in 2 of the 3 main areas, you can kind of get away with average in that 3rd area and have a successful team. Will it be a championship team? Maybe not. Maybe it depends on teamwork at that point. But I feel like all these pickups are really good. I think, kind of going back to the beginning, Blaze will be important to this if this is how it strikes out, because it will be Color Hex and Blaze more often than like Color Hex and Striker or Blaze and Striker, because between Color Hex and Blaze they kind of allow that flexibility. So I feel like the two kind of go in tandem, but Color Hex is obviously the bigger pickup of the two just because of pure mechanical skill.
Yeah, which, I'm really excited to see, someone from that region kind of get into be on the main stage here for once, outside of, any sort of
Custa.
like, well, yeah, I mean, Cuss has been the only one in regards to that, but Color Hex has been someone that's been on the radar for, a lot longer than, some people might realize, just with his tenure with Cindy Drop Bears. And, if anything, like, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of Cindy Drop Bears getting picked up or, getting trials or things like that. At least I haven't really heard anything too much in regards to the rumor mill, which I found interesting. But, maybe it's more teams looking at the coaches from Australia and that region for that matter. But anyways, moving on, let's talk a little bit about the Dallas Fuel or the dumpster fire, whichever terminology you want to use. But
Hey,
Dallas.
hey. How many playoff games did Soul play in? We still got one over you, buddy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess.
And we took NYXL to a game 5, so it wasn't like we went out in a dumpster fire. So
you got to take your victories where you can get them.
yeah,
if you're
just
a
like
Fuel
Soul takes playoff spots that they have to add for them, right?
Yeah. Having that 7 to 12 slots at the end of stage 4. Absolutely. But anyways, Dallas has gone out and made their first official signing of the offseason by signing former London Spitfire main support Closer. So during the inaugural season, Closer had only played in like 18 matches for the Spitfire. He saw a little bit less play during the home stretch in Stage 4, having only played 2 matches. Again, that was at a time where the Spitfire had basically like condensed their rosters, but they kept him on just for the way he saw the game, and he's still helping out the team. So despite that limited time, he was one of the few that wasn't deactivated from the Spitfire. So, looking at the Fuel roster, as of right now, we have OGE and Mickey on the tank line. RCK is rumored to be one of the signings for the tank line. For DPS, you have AKM, Taimu, and Effect, who is returning after his, mental break from Overwatch. And, being homesick, all that good stuff. And then support line, we have Unco, Closer, and Harry Hook. Now, Closer, kind of like when you look at his hero pool, it's kind of a hybrid in the sense that it does cover, some roles that both Unco and Harry Hook play. But that being said, there were quite a few times where the ult economy for the support line in particular for Dallas Fuel was not the greatest. And, we've seen the influx of Korean talent in the Overwatch League, so this really should not come as a surprise to you. But the big question for me is, so let's say you're bringing in Closer to play, a spot that Harry Hook would normally play. Would you then free up the carry Hook on 76, or, is AKM just going to be kind of one-tricking his way onto that role in particular?
No. And I can tell you one reason, and that reason is McCree. AKM was okay at McCree, but he was never good at McCree. So I feel like Harry Hook, while there may be some cheeky times that they'll put him in as 76, I feel like most often than not, you're going to see Closer and Unco together. The only thing that worries me about this support lineup is none of these three have shown a high level of Ana play, at least what we're seeing teams play at right now, like what we would have expected with Chips, who they got rid of. So I haven't seen Closer play Ana outside of a few streams where I'm watching him on somebody else's stream, like he's doing or tripling with people. So I'm curious to see what level he actually plays Ana at, and he may be their Ana player. But I think, looking at this roster as a whole, the one thing that stands out to me is they basically have 3 hit scan specialists now. And this is my main worry for Dallas. Like, I can breeze through the tank lineup easy. OGE's main tank, Mickey will probably play Brigitte and occasionally Diva or Zarya, and RCK will play the rest of the time. Like basically, RCK is the replacement for Seagull at this point. Closer and Unko will be your starting supports more often than not, unless they're trying to do something cheeky. But DPS, like I'm sitting here looking at it, like okay, AKM plays Soldier, Widow, a little bit of McCree. And he has been known to select Pharah and Genji occasionally. Taimu plays McCree and Widow almost exclusively. And Effect plays McCree and Tracer. So, like, this is my worry as a Dallas Fuel fan. Like, okay, well, what if you need a Pharah? What if you need a Genji? Like, sure, AKM, we make jokes about him, but he was a below average Genji at best. Like in dire times, he would work as a Genji. So I'm a little worried, and I feel like they're setting themselves back up to what they were in season 1, where they really were like, we have tools, but we're gonna run with this core roster of Envious and ignore the tools that we have. But this time they don't have those tools. They're like, here is our roster, but we have like, the only thing I'm not really mentioning is Effect has been known to play Doomfist, but I haven't seen that in so long I can't comment on that. But I am worried as a Dallas Fuel fan that they've kind of pigeonholed themselves into this, hit scan only group dynamic, unless like AKM is like hardcore grinding, Pharah and Genji and stuff and getting up there, because he's a talented player and I feel like he could do it. All jokes aside about blades and, Pharah battles and stuff like that. I feel like he could do that if he focused on that. But as of right now, I'm worried as a Fuel fan, especially when we get into more of these rosters, because they're just more meta proof.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you bring up Pharah, because there might be a certain player who's on Envy who they could bring up that's kind of known for his Pharah play. Yeah, maybe something to correct the tailspin that this team was on in season
I don't
1.
know if he would ever play with Taimu again.
This is true. Yeah, that would be the big hurdle if they were to bring Tailspin up, and that very well could keep him on the academy team for that matter. But there are a ton of great Pharah players out there. But yes, like the projectile is really like the biggest concern right now for Deadless Fuel. And I know AKM has been putting a lot of work into the Genji, and he's been embracing the meme of the time it takes him to build a blade, and he's really embraced it rather than just being like down on himself 100% of the time about it. But like it's so hard to like learn a role like that far into your career, or just trying to learn it to get to a level to be Overwatch League level, because you're already starting behind players that have been playing that specific hero or that specific role for a couple of years now. So they definitely need to bring in another DPS. And yes, absolutely, like they're covered on hit scan, like that's great. Soldier 76 is looking good, McCree's still looking good, AKM and Taimu both frequent the hit scan role, and Effect, Tracer's not really there, but Doomfist is, so
I feel like they'll be in okay spot. And after last season, I trust Arrow. Arrow definitely had some input on this, so he may know more than what we do. Like I said, I've watched a little bit of all these players from what they've played in the off season, and they, AKM has been grinding the projectile, so maybe that's what he's focusing on. Maybe that's what Arrow told him to focus on. There's a lot of stuff, and we're gonna make all these fun conjectures tonight and stuff like this, but just like season 1, probably 10% of them will be true, because by the time the actual season rolls around, the meta is going to be different. There's going to be at least one new hero, possibly 2, by that time. So who knows what it's going to look like at that point. So we'll see. But as of right now, if they started the season today, I would be a little worried for stage 1.
It's going to be a 6 support meta. I'm calling it now.
I can't wait.
That's never going to happen. But anyways, moving on, let's take a look at the Florida Mayhem. And, there's really not a lot of new news here in regards to the Mayhem that we haven't already covered. So looking at the roster, we have Awesome Guy, Zephyr, and Swan for the tank line. For DPS, you have Saya player, BQB, Apply, who is on a 2-way contract and will be playing for Mayhem Academy. I guess you also have Tvik. I guess. And
he's technically on the roster.
He's on the roster. As bus staff and kebab getter, as we have noted. And support line, you got Hago, Poon, Chris, and rumored you have Maza. Maza is, one of the other Team Giganti players that are rumored to be, Overwatch League bound, the other being RCK, as we mentioned, for the Dallas Fuel. But this is, this is a Korean roster at the end of the day. No matter how you want to try to spin this, and maybe just saying, Tvik is, he might find a role. He might just be, a player coach. He might go the Grim Reality route where, he'll turn coach and then get released at the end of the season. Who knows? I don't imagine Tvik wanting to accept a 2-way contract. That would be the other option, but I do not see that happening for as big of a name as he is or has been in the Overwatch scene for quite some time. But, we have both Florida and Shanghai sporting, these new-look rosters. And, when it comes to teams that have the most to gain, as the teams that did finish in 11th and 12th place in Season 1, these are the teams that could potentially have the biggest turnaround. That being said, when you look at the Mayhem, Saya player is actually going to have a team around him. So, how much do you feel like that is going to open things up for Florida?
I think, this team for Florida looks scary. I think they could possibly be a top team, but they can definitely contend for a top team if their teamwork comes together. And I actually do feel like Tvik does have a place on this roster just because he is so versatile. The problem is whether or not he can kind of claim that former, dominance that he had. But now that he has a stronger team around him, that's possible as long as he can communicate with them, which would be, the one hurdle that he'd have to get over, which, good coaching can overcome that. And that's kind of what I feel like these teams, you specifically mentioned Shanghai as well. They had a problem with coaching staff. When Shanghai brought in the Korean players, that was kind of like their fix, but they didn't really put a lot of coaching staff behind it to support the two teams together. They were like, okay, well, now you have a Korean coach, or now you have a Chinese coach that has health issues. There wasn't a whole lot of support structure there. And, we heard all kinds of rumors and stuff like, oh, well, they're only allowed to speak Chinese when they're on comms. Even the Korean players are only supposed to speak Chinese, and that's going to hamper comms. So you need to find a communication system where everybody can talk to everybody. And the fact that Tvik is the single man out actually makes it a lot easier, because then that everybody else can communicate. You just got to kind of figure something out for him. So I feel like he absolutely has a chance to play on this roster. That being said, rose tinted goggles off, I think he will get a few opportunities. And if we don't see something phenomenal, we won't see Tvik again. I'd hate to be that downright negative, go that Monte Cristo of a route, but that's what it's going to be. We're going to see him once or twice, possibly, and if it's not amazing, we're not going to see him again.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. So all in all, upgrades pretty much across the board. I am excited to see what Zephyr is going to be able to do now that he's going to have more opportunity to play. And, Apply, I can't imagine a scenario where Apply is actually going to be seeing some time in the Overwatch League this season. A lot of that's just going to be in Mayhem Academy for the time being. But, if you're a Florida fan, you're going to have a lot more to look forward to in Season 2 after Kind of. I'm trying to think of how I should describe season 1 for Mayhem. It just
Disappointment.
it was disappointing knowing that they did have an EU powerhouse team, and yeah, things just didn't work out, unfortunately. As was a lot of the cases for teams that built around core rosters. But when you're working with the bare minimum, like, what else should you expect from your team? They definitely put themselves in a bad spot, kind of from the get-go there. But anyways, moving on, we have the Houston Outlaws. Probably a fan favorite, I would imagine, of our listeners, just because it's Houston.
Team America.
Team America. Well, formerly Team America.
I mean, they still
From the World Cup,
still have
anyway.
the most American players on there. So
this is true. You got me there. But anyways, not a whole lot of movement from the Outlaws. Outside of that trade that already happened. But anyways, so for the tank line, you got Spree, Muma, Coolmet. DPS, you got Dante, Linkser, Arhan, and Jake. Or Jake Lul, depending on how you want to look at it. And then Sport line, you got Bonnie, Boink, and Raucous. Okay, so, as I mentioned, things have been pretty quiet. We did have the trade between the Shock and the Outlaws. Smurf was sent from, GG Esports Academy, who are in definite hot water right now anyways.
Boy, he got out at the right time, didn't he?
Yeah. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't be really seeing play, I don't think, right now. That's a whole nother story, which we'll probably talk about on HND on Wednesday. Because there's a pretty spicy article on the behind-the-scenes stuff from that team. But, we got Dante from the Shock to the Outlaws. So, you got your Sombra, you got your Tracer Specialist. One of the missing pieces from the Outlaws, or, what many people are like, what are you doing? Like, we do not have a Tracer player. And then they're like, we'll, let's put Jake on the roll. Let's see how he does. He's like, okay, like, he's doing okay. Okay,
serviceable.
Let's put our best Widowmaker on that role. I think, sir, you did about the same, maybe a little bit better than Jake, but, you were also losing more firepower because your best hit scan was essentially on Tracer duty. But all things considered, like, right now, like, I feel like the Outlaws have most of the pieces that they need. I'm still very cautious and optimistic when it comes to the support line. There's been quite a few occasions where, maybe their Mercy players have been getting caught in self-destructs, or Raucous has had, maybe not that big of an impact, especially on Zenyatta, but, we're in an Ana meta, so who knows how Raucous is gonna look nowadays, but all in all, like, I feel like right now, the shift of the meta is going to be in the Outlaws' favor, but of course, all of this is going to change by the time Season 2 actually kicks off. But are you surprised that there hasn't been more movement in regards to the Outlaws roster at this point?
A little bit. Mostly actually not in the support line, because I actually feel like their support line is pretty good outside of, the Mercy Zen comp. Raucous, we kind of down-talked him in the World Cup, and then he came out and put a phenomenal showing on Ana. Like, he actually turned my mind around completely the way he played on Ana. And I feel like between Bonnie and Boink, because Bonnie also put out a pretty good show for Team Canada, not good enough to beat the USA, but pretty good show overall. So I feel like their support line is actually pretty good. Like, I feel like they have an above average support line outside of a Zenyatta player. And Raucous is a serviceable Zenyatta. He's just not as an impactful Zenyatta, which is what you really needed in the last season. But their tank lineup is still interesting to me. Like, Muma is a very strong tank. He's very good on Winston. He's actually really good on Reinhardt. He didn't get a chance to flex to that a whole lot. Spree is really good on Zarya, but he's not really that good in any other role. And Coolmat, while a serviceable diva, definitely dropped off near the end of last season, which hurts me to say because I really like watching Coolmat. I think he's a fun player to watch. But you really need a player that can combine them at this point. Like, I feel like when they dropped Fact Fiction that they were going to pick up another tank, and they just never found another flex tank that really fit that role. So I feel like, I hate to say it, they went from having a DPS problem to having a tank problem. That being said, I think, if the meta continues as it is, they will be in a very good place, just because they're a meta dependent team, and the current meta fits their team very well. Like, you can run Arhan and Linkser and do work. You can run Linkser and Dante and do work. You can run Linkser and Jake and, defend King's Row as long as he gets to play Junkrat. So, I mean, you have all kinds of options. So I feel like they're on the right path, but their tank line worries me a little bit. So we'll see, and again, it could be fixed by coaching. It could be fixed by meta. I was just a little worried there with Cool Matt near the end of the season. Like, he wasn't having the same impact as, players like Fury or Siegel were on the Diva. When Diva was actually becoming less popular, like, not pick rate wise, but less of an impactful player. Like, she is becoming more of a bodyguard. And now that we're in, goats and hit scan and stuff like that, the fact that you need to switch from like Diva to Zarya to, Brigitte to whatever, they don't really have an off tank that can do that for me. Like, unless Spree is really been grinding, or Cool Matt has really been grinding, just from what I know from last season, I feel like that might be their one sore spot.
Again, for me, I want to see more from Spree, primarily just because, looking back at Season 1, like, he didn't see, like, that much play. He was basically, like, on King's Row duty, basically, and that was about it. But, in this current meta between Goats and Rein Zarya, compositions, there's a chance that he will be seeing more play in this current meta. But, it's so hard to say, like, right now, whether, like, players that specialize in one specific thing, or one hero for that matter, really have, like, the biggest impact, just because, like, you're not always going to be seeing them put into, a situation where they're going to be seeing play. So for Spree's case, I hope he has been working on some of his other tanks, but for now, like, in this current meta, he's a perfect fit. But all in all, like, looking at the DPS, I feel like their DPS line is going to be a lot stronger this year. You mentioned, Junkrat a bit. Right now, we are seeing, a little bit of Junkrat paired with 76, so, that would be a good Drake and Linkser composition to run, which, also requires Orisa. And it's so weird, like, seeing, like, all these different tanks in the meta all of a sudden, when it's always been, like, okay, we're either running Straight Dive or we're running Rein Zarya. Well, you have all these other compositions that are built around, staying behind these shields, where, Orisa's poke damage just far exceeds what Reinhardt can do right now, in some instances. So, it's just a really interesting thing how Houston still to this day seems to be like a meta-dependent team. So hopefully it stays this way, but it could be a similar case of Season 1, where maybe they'll start hot and then kind of wane off just a little bit going into the next stage. We'll just have to wait and see with that. But while they have really not made that many waves, there is another team out there that, after winning the first season, has made a couple of changes to their roster, that, of course, being the London Spitfire. So, London have added 2 new players to their ranks by signing former Element Mystic DPS player, Guard, as well as a player out of the Open Division, in Krillin. So, Krillin had played for Crusher in Open Division Korea, and, Crusher is a team that made it into Contenders Trials Korea Season 1. They qualified for the Open Division playoffs in Open Division Korea Season 2, and the signings bring the Spitfire roster up to 8, which, as we had mentioned, is the league minimum, and, they hit that by, it was early December was the date that they put for that. Mm-hmm. So, right now, the Spitfire roster looks like Gesture and Fury on the tank line. You have Prophet, Birdring, and Guard on the DPS line, with Nuss, Bedosian, and Krillin acting as your support line. So, there's no rumored sign-ins or unofficial, members as of yet. But, we saw how well working with that more condensed roster worked for London, leading into what would be the first playoffs. But that being said, Guard is a player that specializes on Tracer and Sombra. And if the meta is somewhat similar to what it is now, having a Sombra specialist is going to go a long way. We've seen a lot of different comps revolving around having a Sombra. We've seen Sombra Genji. We've seen Sombra McCree. Probably a little bit more than the Genji variation. And then you have, like, this relative unknown player like Krillin, and, you want to talk about flex support in the league and how, in most instances, like, people make the comment, well, if you're not a fragger, then, it's hard to really get noticed. And, case in point, you had, Jonak, the MVP of Season 1, who, by far the most bloodthirsty Zenyatta in the league, but Bedosian's, no slack himself in that specific role. But Krillin is a young player. He's going to turn 18 here within the next week, actually.
Yep.
Which will make him the youngest player on the active roster for London. But, talking about the path to pro scene, how unprecedented is it to go from Open Division and go straight into the Overwatch League? Like, that just speaks volumes about how good, or how much faith, like, the London Spitfire staff has in a player like Krillin, especially at that age.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unprecedented, but it's not completely unheard of, because teams are pulling players off the ladder, which I feel is, the step below Open Division, so it's even bigger jump. But they had to have liked what they've seen, and, attitude goes a long way as well. So as long as he's, like, willing to learn and, willing to listen, I feel like this could be a really good pickup for them. Obviously, I haven't seen him play because the Open Division matchups are hard enough to watch in NA, much less Korea. So I'm curious to see how he does. And, he has a pretty strong support lineup, kind of to teach him, with Bedosian and Nuss, leading the way. They are champion winners. So, who better to learn from? But overall, I wasn't that surprised with what they're currently running with. I feel like we're going to hear one more, maybe a backup tank signing. I don't know if it'll be someone, name recognizable. They may pull from an academy team, or pull, someone else from Open Division. Who knows? But I feel like they need at least one more tank, because I feel like one extra in every slot is the real bare minimum. Like, obviously 8 is what the contract says, but I feel like you need one in every slot to kind of just, sure it up a little bit, because you don't want to run into a situation where you're playing Taimu on tank and you haven't at least somewhat prepared him for that role, or Ryuje Kong. And that could absolutely happen with this roster. You never know. Gesture gets sick. Are they going to sub in Guard just because his name is Guard?
It would have to be. I mean, it would make sense.
Right. So, and I feel like, they're still a strong team. Like, nothing has really changed on this team outside of losing, closer. But, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up. Like, London is probably the easiest team for me to talk about, because they won, so they don't need to make changes theoretically.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is, like, when you look at traditional sports, a lot of the time what happens is, a team wins, like, the championship, and then they just, like, get gutted, basically, or right. To deal with, like,
that's
the salary cap.
Salary caps and all that stuff.
All of that crap. But anyways, what you won't see, like, let's say, Fury gets sick or injured or has to deal with a kidney stone or whatever else. You're not going to put Krillin on that role, if only for the sole reason that he would probably die a lot.
Solid Dragon Ball Z reference.
Which, when I made a DBZ joke on HND, it went right over it.
I was gonna go even more and just start pronouncing his name in the Japanese fashion, but I feel like that would have been too much. So
that would be too on the nose.
even though he doesn't have a nose.
This is also true. But anyways, moving on, let's take a look at the LA team. So first up, we'll talk about the Los Angeles Gladiators. So, we got a couple of rumored sign-ins for the Gladiators. So first up, let's look at their tank line. Right now, we know they have Bishu, they have Void, they don't have a main tank right now. So they are looking at sign-in Roar, he is a rumored tank. At the DPS line, you have Surefour and Hydration. Decay being the rumored DPS, and then support line, you got Shads, you got Big Goose. So as of right now, you have 6 players on this roster. When you're looking at the free agent, sign-in window right now, Decay's been one of the biggest free agents on the market right now. He is from Dranthera, who that team in itself has been completely gutted with this sign-in window. Basically, another team that kind of didn't really have that much of a show in last season. Pretty much took the majority of that core roster, which we'll talk about. But Decay just has a very wide hero pool. He's played Tracer. That's his primary role, but he does play Widowmaker. He plays Genji. He plays Zarya. But his bread maker is Tracer. And if the rumors are true, then he's not going to be the only Dranthera member joining him, because Roar is also the main tank for that squad. Now, when you look at Shangdoo, this is a team that were the runner-ups last season in Contenders Korea, who, they lost to our boys Runaway in the Grand Finals 4-3. And again, if you guys haven't caught the Grand Finals from, Contenders Korea last season, please go do that. You will not
go
be
back and watch it. What do you got going on that's so important that you can't go watch one of the best matches in the past year?
It's not like there's another tournament going on right now that's streamed anyway, so you might as well do yourselves a favor. But Gladiators right now, they need a main tank, and losing Fisher, it really makes you wonder, how much of an impact did Fisher really have on this roster? Because basically, when he got signs, all of a sudden, there's this new look Gladiators DPS lineup who are suddenly popping off now that they have the space provided for them. But, it's been pretty quiet on their front in regards to sign-ins so far. But, there's maybe a little bit of overlap in regards to the hero pools with the DPS lineup if it stays as it is rumored to be right now. But how are you feeling about the Gladiators right now, knowing what we know in its current state?
I mean, if you go purely off of what's actually confirmed, they're not a complete team. You can say, all right, we'll play Void and Vichu, but that's not how it's going to end up. Most likely they're going to sign Roar. If not, they'll sign another main tank to fill the void left next to Void. We really like the Abyss and Void on the show. I'm really starting to realize that. But going with Roar, I think Roar is a good pickup. I think he is a clear upgrade from iRemix. Whether or not he is an upgrade to Fisher would be, yet to be seen. But he definitely has the potential to do that. He's a very talented tank player. But looking at Decay specifically, there's a reason why all these rumors are flying around. He is a phenomenal DPS player. And while he is known for his Tracer, he can absolutely play any of the other heroes that you mentioned at a high level. And he would fit into this roster in any way possible. You can run him over Surefour if you want. If you want a little more flexibility, you can put him and Surefour together if you want just supreme hit scan firepower you haven't seen. Or you can run any combination of these three. So if they actually picked up Decay, they could be a very scary team depending on if they sign Roar as the main tank. But all that being said, still missing a hole in support. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. They need a third support just to fill it out, because neither Big Goose nor Shaz really wowed us near the end of last season. There was a lot of hype for Shaz as a bloodthirsty support when Jonak was kind of at the height of his popularity on the Zenyatta. Shaz was kind of like, oh, well, he's the Western Jonak. And he never really quite lived up to that. Like, he was serviceable, and he was definitely better at it than, say, like Raucus was. But they never had as much of an impact as we were initially expecting them to, especially after seeing them in like stage 2 and what their support line was doing while Fisher was still kind of learning the ropes. So as a whole, this is actually one of the probably middle of the pack teams that I would look at right now, just depending on how well synergy works out and their lack of a super strong support line. Because like I said earlier, you can have above average at 2 of the 3 and get away with average, but that's not going to lead to a championship level team.
Yeah, and looking at their counterparts in the LA Valiant, there's a little bit of question marks going on with this team as well. So first up, let's talk about the big news that dropped here, recently, and that's the fact that the LA Valiant have traded DPS player soon to, and I'm gonna air quote because I feel like we need to, unnamed Overwatch League team, Paris.
In Paris,
Yeah.
An unnamed Overwatch League team in Paris, which is literally what they are right now. An unnamed Overwatch League team in Paris.
Paris Unknowns. That's going to be their official name. Not really. So on top of this, 2 coaches have also been traded. Damon and Gunba to the unnamed team, Paris. As well as Boston Uprising in regards to Gunba. So looking at this lineup, tank lines, they got Fate, they got Space, an absolute monster duo. They had signed Kuki from formerly Seoul Dynasty. DPS line currently looks like Bunny, KSF, and Agilities, with a support line of Kusta, Azayaki, and Kariv? Question mark? And because that's the thing right now. So you trade away Soon, who definitely brings in a lot of fanfare for that team. Kusta, is gonna try to hold that down in the meantime. You have a lack of hit scan play on this roster currently, and yes, I know they have KSF. He does play hit scan. Probably not the best performance in season 1. There weren't many instances where I'm like, man, I'm glad KSF is in for this map. No, that's never really been the case. He hasn't had that wow factor for me as of yet. But that being said, you have Kariv, who in the past has flexed to these other roles when he hasn't been on the support line. And if the California Cup is any indication of what we might see from the LA Valiant, Kariv is going to make that transition to playing DPS again. Now, that being said, obviously that's going to put a lot of stress and weight on Kariv. And it's really to come down to how he's going to be able to handle that pressure. But, because of that, you're looking at a player like Azayaki, who is going to be seeing a lot more time being played. I can't remember him even playing in the first season. But, if you've been following, the Valiant on social media, you've seen Azayaki, all over the media content right now. So it seems like the Valiant are trying to put him at the forefront so people can get to know him as a person. And, if he's going to be playing a lot in Season 2, you might as well, get the word out about this kid. But, we've had rumors about, Agilities potentially being benched, which, in regards to that, you could probably take that with a grain of salt right now. But with this current DPS lineup, are you expecting to see a rotation? Or, is there more truth to this? Maybe Agilities is getting benched after all, just seeing what the current meta is.
I mean, it's going to heavily depend on meta, but I don't think any of the DPS they have is to the level that they would need to repeat their stage 4 run, much less their playoff run. I don't know. Ednar said it in chat, and I absolutely agree with him. I feel like they've gotten a lot worse in the offseason. This is definitely one of the few teams that I feel like downgraded across the spectrum. I mean, getting rid of Soon is a huge like downgrade, because he was a tracer specialist, but he was also an extremely high level player for Widowmaker, but he was also like one of those big brain players. Like he was one of those players that every team needs, that can kind of take a step back from the current game and say, what can I do to influence this game that doesn't necessarily depend on mechanical skill? And that's why you got to see him back cap all the time. It's because he could say, oh, well, they're not paying attention, I'm just going to go around them. And not a lot of players can do that, because they're so focused on, okay, I need to land this shot, I need to position here, I need to do this. And Soon absolutely has that level of capability. There's very few players that can do that. And I don't see anybody on this current roster that can do that. Like Agilities is definitely like, I need to frag. KSF is basically, I need to not die. And Bunny is MIA. So I'm curious to see what Bunny ends up, because Bunny was a very, very good tracer player, but he never really showed us anything else in the Overwatch League. So I'm curious there. And Kareev, while he has the capability to play hit scan, wasn't, phenomenal on any of it. Like he didn't really wow us. Like he was like, okay, cool, he's on Soldier, and we were like, oh my god, Kareev's on Soldier, because he's typically a support. But then he played Soldier, and they're like, maybe you should go back to support.
Yeah, I feel like in Kareev's case, if he does come in, it'll probably be to play Widow primarily.
Right.
On that role anyway.
But yeah, and Aziaki is good from what I saw on the Cup, but I will reserve judgment until I see him actually play in the Overwatch League, because playing, tandem mystery heroes is very different than playing in the Overwatch League. But all jokes aside, I haven't seen enough of him to say whether he can, run with Custa, but it's possible. But I feel like at this point, if I had to like put them, it would be like low middle of the pack. Just looking at all these other teams, closer to the bottom.
Okay, I think that's fair. But let's talk about a team that probably felt like they were on the bottom after their season kind of went down the tubes. That being,
They choked.
The New York Excelsior. Yeah, some might say that. But anyway, so looking at this New York roster, I feel like we need to talk about not only the Excelsior, but XL2 Academy, because, talk about tandems. New York has an interesting problem, which only one other team shares, and I feel like that would also be Philadelphia, in a case where you have a lot of parts in your Academy team that would easily fit in the Overwatch League, whether it was on your team or another team. So right now for the Excelsior, they have Mono and Meko for their tank line. Rumored to be joining the tank line is Nene, who is on XL2 Academy. DPS, really no shortage of DPS on either side, whether it's Overwatch League or Contenders. They have SBB, you got Pine, you got Libero. Rumored to be joining the NYXL is Nanohana. And then support line, you got Arc, Jonek, Animo. So, XL2 has, just this wealth of talent. And yes, they 100% got styled on by Fusion Uni. And it wasn't even close. It looked pretty bad. But, you have Nanohana, a.k.a. Flower, who, if you haven't really been following Contenders, he went back to his original IGN name of Nanohana. And Flower is more of a household name because of the World Cup last year when he put on that Widowmaker masterclass, essentially, especially on Hanamura. But, you just have this team that has a DPS up the wazoo. You have Nene, who primarily had been playing DPS for XL2, and if you want to talk about impact on XL2, Nene, out of him, Flower, and Mangachu, had the biggest impact on that lineup, bar none. But he could be looking at a role swap if he's going to this main roster, where he would be filling in as a tank. Now, Nene in the past has played off tank. He played off tank for Luxury Watch Red, as well as Takai when he was on that team prior. But, it's been a while since we've actually seen him on that role. But he did flex his Zarya in Contenders North America. But at the end of the day, you have a player like Nene who could be very good trade bait. Even in Flower's case, too, as well. But Flower didn't really have, that big of an impact. So it really makes me scratch my head. It's well, Nene's been the guy that's been popping off, and they're talking about bringing up Flower? And then on the other side of the coin, it's well, a lot of these players could be perceived trade bait as well on this DPS lineup. So it really makes you think where exactly they're going to be fitting all of these pieces, because this is a very complex puzzle to try to figure out who's going to fit what role. How can we maximize the impact that a player is going to have on our roster? And their options are almost limitless in regards to the flexibility that these teams have, both at the Tier 1 scene as well as Tier 2.
Yeah, their options are limitless. The problem is their capabilities are very limited in what they're actually able to do. So, NYXL is a superbly talented team, but that also brings a lot of egos, and they basically have multiple starters on their roster. So I'm curious to see how it all plays out as well. Nene and Nanahana bring a lot more firepower to the team, which is, firepower and flexibility were really what hurt NYXL in the playoffs. They just couldn't seem to get the picks that they needed. They couldn't seem to get what they needed going. And they kind of fell into that London trap where they stuck on things too long and really had to kind of wait it out until they were last minute to try to make something work.
Yeah, literally last minute.
Exactly. So, my bigger question is not where you put Nene and Nanahana. It's more, what do you do with SBB and Pine? Because both of those really kind of dropped off near the end of the season, especially Pine. Pine really struggled. He would have his pop-off moment, and then that would be it. That was all you saw from him. Whereas, Libero was pretty consistent. He did struggle more so than we thought he would on Hanzo. But overall, he was, probably the most consistent of their DPS line. SBB was serviceable, but he never really found his place after Tracer kind of fell out of the meta. He did okay on Widow. He was one of the better Brigidas, but it wasn't quite to the level that we had seen him play the first three stages. So overall, I think NYXL is still going to be a top tier team. They just have to keep the egos in check. They have to find a way to make this team work as a team again. And moving into a different support meta could absolutely do that, because we all heard about Jonak syndrome and we all heard about all this. And sure, they did a really good job of supporting Jonak and, allowing that Jonak syndrome to thrive. But that also probably put a strain on the rest of the team too, because, they had to divert so many resources to him. So moving out of that type of play style will open it up for the rest of the team. So I feel like they're still going to be a top tier team as long as they can keep, as long as they can check themselves before they wreck themselves.
Well, with that in mind, Spider, knowing the impact that obviously Jonak has on that role in particular, do you feel like maybe MXL might still be reliant on running the Zenyatta in most instances?
It's possible, except for the fact that Jonak is a phenomenal Ana player. If they can get away running Ana, I can tell you just from watching Jonak that 9 times out of 10, he's going to push to play Ana over Zenyatta. He may have made his name on Zenyatta, but he much prefers to play Ana. So I don't know if they'll be relying on it. Who knows? By February, we may see a Zenyatta heavy meta. It doesn't matter. But I feel like as long as coaching is doing what they're supposed to do, they shouldn't be. If we do see them rely on it, that's a whole nother problem, and that could lead to a a very underperforming, NYXL.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, shifting gears, let's look at maybe like their main rivals in regards to sports. I guess is the best way to look at it because
Things.
yeah, I mean, East Coast. You got the Philadelphia Fusion, who them themselves, they've haven't really made that many moves. We did talk about the trade with Hotba going to Guangzhou. But the Fusion, they have Sado, Fraggy, and Poco on their tank line. For DPS, you got Snillo, Carpe, and EQO. And then support line, you have Boombox and Neptuno both returning, as well as Elk, who is on a 2-way contract, but, he's basically said, like, don't expect me to be playing in Contenders in November. So, he's looking like he is main roster 100% of the way. With that being said, they dropped Hoppa, as I mentioned. He's got traded to one of the expansion teams. And, with that, you can expect that Poco will be seeing a lot more play on the off-tank role for the Fusion. And Elk, Elk's kind of in, like, this really curious case, because this is a very young talent who has, pretty big brain game sense, and Neptuno's really been the Iron Man of the Overwatch League, having played in more maps than anyone, more games than anyone. Even wanting to get subbed in despite, having some ailments. To the point where it's just like, nah, Dave Law, you're not playing anymore. Just put me in, coach.
I'm fine. You're missing an arm. No, I can do better than him.
Like if you're Elk in this situation, where are you standing? Because it's like, he obviously saw what happened with Philadelphia in that case. So what has to happen to Neptuno in order for him to be like, you know what, maybe I should sit this one out?
Maybe it's not Neptuno, though. Here's the thing. There's been very, very few rumors, but they have been around, if you look hard enough, that Boombox won't be playing a whole lot in Season 2, or possibly not be on the team. Now, that is, like, superbly out in the rumor mill. Like, that is like super out there, but there have been whispers of it, if you put your ear to the ground and listen. So that could be the possibility of why Elk is so confident that he is going to be playing. But to your original point, Elk is a phenomenal player, and I feel like he may not go toe-to-toe with Neptuno on Mercy, but I feel like Elk can outplay Neptuno on other characters, at least from what we've seen. We haven't ever seen them play head-to-head on the same characters, so who knows? But the curious thing to me is they let go of Hotba, but they kept Fraggy. So that was kind of the one point to me, is like they clearly are moving towards a Sado Poco, relationship for the main tank. So is Fraggy just going to be the sub? Like that's the only thing that I see. Like, Fraggy has the experience. He's by far not a bad tank. Like, he is actually a very good tank. He's just, he's Fraggy, so you have to know what you're going to play like when you play with Fraggy. You're going to be hyper aggressive. And he's going to feed at times, as is the Fraggy tradition, which is very fun to watch. But outside of that, he is a very competent main tank. And, we've said it before, main tank is a hard role to fill. So I feel like maybe they just wanted to keep him around. But that was kind of, curious to me. But overall, like, the whole team, it's kind of the London thing. Like, they were the runner-ups for stage 1. You don't expect a whole lot of movement out of them, when you're not being forced to trade players via salary caps or anything like that. You almost won the championship. Well, you made it to the championship, so you're not going to change too much, theoretically.
Yeah, and looking at their academy team, probably one of the biggest question marks right now in regards to free agent signings is where's Zachary in all of this? You have Zachary, who has really been pushed as potentially one of the breakout stars this year at the Overwatch World Cup, and probably the biggest thing is like, okay, well, Zachary and Carpe basically have the same hero pool, so where exactly would he fit into this roster? And that's, like, the biggest thing. Carpe, by far, is, like, definitely one of the top DPS at,
He'd fit really good
of the heroes that he
into
loves.
he'd fit really good into LA Valiant.
He absolutely would, Zachary could be perceived, trade bait at this case, but, it'd be kind of hard to argue starting him over cart bait if he were to get called up to the main roster, but, I feel for the kid because I for sure thought that out of everyone on that academy team, outside of Elk anyway, that Zachary would have been picked up. A lot of people are going to look at Who Are You also, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe Who Are You doesn't turn 18 until August, which, if my math comes out correct, would be after mid-season. So he would not be eligible until Season 3. But, Beast Halo's on that lineup as well. Really awesome main tank. And, if there was any move like Fraggy to me is in this very precarious situation where, it's hard to imagine him really getting that much playtime outside of, Sato needing a little bit of rest. Or maybe they just want to go aggro Ryan and just go, well, that's the thing, like, even in, like, a triple tank, triple support, like,
aggro Ryan is key to Goats winning.
Right.
But you need competent supports behind him. But aggro Ryan is very much the key to Goats doing well. So maybe that's why they kept him on. I hadn't considered that he would fit much better into a Goats composition than Sato would, just based off of their Ryan play styles. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe sub/Goats tank.
That definitely could be the way that they're going about this, but we're probably, like, I would expect, like, Fusion to make at least one more sign in at the end of the day with this, but it seems like right now a lot of teams are kind of like levitating towards that 9-man roster, but there's a max of 12, and I'm really curious to see, like, what the median number is going to be in regards to the roster sizes. Are people going to make the mistake that the Mayhem did last season, where they're kind of working with a bare minimum? Are they going to have an overabundance of talent where, they're trying to fit 12 players on one roster and make everyone happy, which isn't going to happen? There's a lot of, like, these intricate problems they have to kind of deal with when it comes to the actual roster sizes. But, there's, a Shock team who were kind of, like, got a shellacking in the first part of the California Cup. At the hands of the LA Valiant, and the Shock, they've made a call up. They brought up Rascal from Energy Esports. They have one rumored player right now. So taking a look at this roster, at a tank line you have Smurf, who was traded from GG Esports Academy. You have Super, Nefix, Choi Hyo Bin, and then for a DPS you got Architect, you got Baby Bay, Rascal, Sinatra, and then support line you have Sleepy and Moth, with the rumored support player being Violet. So Rascal is really not a surprise that he was called up. He brings a tremendous amount of flexibility. He's played Sombra, Genji, Pharah, McCree. He's played quite a bit of Mei, which we've seen a little bit of, like, Mei and Doomfist comps, Control Center primarily. But that's been kind of, gaining quite a bit of popularity. And, despite them kind of getting, crushed in the California Cup so far, and, making, some coaching changes, it's just like, I feel like right now, Shocker's still lacking that cohesion. And in Season 1, it was always, okay, we're playing the waiting game. Let's see what happens when some of our players become of age and are eligible to play. And then, at that point, you're already so far into the season, it felt like they were already playing, like, a losing hand at that point. But, they're going to turn to Violet from O2 Ardeon to help bolster the support line. But I can't help but feel like right now, when you look at the Shock, this is still a team that looks poised to kind of be middle of the pack again. And, like, Sinatra, he's gonna have, like, a good spot, even if Tracer's in meta, because, we've seen him flex to Reinhardt even. Like, for Team USA. He plays a very good Zarya, which might even be his better tank out of the two for sure. But all in all, like, this is a team that was very reliant on mechanical skill in Season 1, and, we didn't necessarily see that played out to fruition. So, I still have a lot of concerns about the Shock, but, there are a lot of members of the community out there that seem pretty confident that the Shock is going to be able to turn around and make a run in the playoffs, but I don't see it right now.
I'm with you. I feel like for some reason, just I don't know, like there's nothing on this roster outside of Architect that really speaks to me as, like, I don't know, that wow factor, like, and it should, because Rascal's on there. Moth is a very good support. Nevix is a very good off tank. But I don't know, like, I think you're right. I think it's the cohesion, and I can't really use the show match as a huge indicator for that, because it was mostly for fun. Like, they screwed around a lot. Like, it wasn't clear. It was very clearly not an Overwatch League game. Like, there was a lot of fun being had. Like, there was a lot of chat back and forth. Like, they were bantering and
there
stuff
was
like that.
Arts and crafts.
There was arts and crafts, which, by the way, I absolutely nailed. Like, we were watching it, and I said, "Oh, MVP is Custa," and she was like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "It's clearly Custa." And then, like, Sideshow was like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "It's Custa." I'm like, "I told you. How could you not see that, Sideshow?" Throwing again, but overall, back to the Shock. I feel like they just need some coaching help, and I hope they do better. Like, I hope they do better than middle of the pack. But right now, everything that we're looking at, it's basically like they have star DPS players and okay rest of the field. Like, I'll wait and see, until everything's confirmed. But we'll see how it shakes out for the Shock.
I see what you did there. I don't like it.
Got to get them puns in there somewhere.
But I'll have to deal with it. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about My Soul Dynasty, who have made a little bit of moves. I would say probably a lot of moves, technically, in this past week. So Soul right now is under their rebuild phase. After, yes, they did fail to secure any sort of playoff berth, which I feel like I have to bring it up just because the disappointment just eats me up inside. But the Dynasty, they've gone out, they have signed 3 new players. They've also picked up a new coach. So joining the roster are Michelle, Marvel, and Jesse. They also added Why Not to the coach and staff. So, this new signings bring the Dynasty roster up to 9 players, which seems to be a pretty common thing across the board right now. So you have Michelle and Marvel, who come from Lucky Future Zenith, who had basically just run shot through Contenders China. Side note, that is a Korean team. So, shocker, like, Korea is the best in 2 regions. Or technically 3, if you want to look at it that way.
Maybe.
But Jesse previously played on Element Mystic, with Why Not serving as an assistant coach for the team, having previously worked for O2 Ardeon, who I've really kind of been like one of the Cinderella teams in Contenders Korea, who had a pretty good run in, wasn't last season, but the year prior, when they were going basically toe-to-toe with like X6 Gaming at the time, and he was on an MVP Infinity prior. But, looking at the current tank lineup, they have 4 tanks on the lineup, which, go figure,
Woo!
They were trying to figure out, well, like, what's their issue? And they're like, F it, we'll sign 3 tanks. So on the tank line, you have Zunba, you have Fisher, Michelle, and Marvel. For DPS, you have Fleta, Munchkin, and the rumor is Otto, but it's looking like Otto's going to Washington, D.C., based on, the fact that he was just like, oh, this would be a good hint, and then, like, he went on to, like, host Wizard Hyun on his stream. And then for the support line, you have Toby, Ryu Jaehan, and Jesse. So, LFZ, Lucky Future Zenith, this has been a team that's been picked apart by these Overwatch League teams during the free agency period, with, 2 players joining the Dynasty. 3 of their other players are rumored to be joining other teams. And you have Marvel and Michelle both coming from that team. Now, that being said, Dynasty won out, they got Fisher, so it's really hard to imagine that in any situation, like, the Dynasty are just going to outright play the LFZ tank duo over Zunba and Fisher. But right now, Jesse would be subbing in for Toby. Otto would be a nice addition to the team, but it's looking less and less likely, just, due to the hints that he's been given, which he did say, like, he'll have very good news here next week. But that being said, like, is there anyone out there in particular that you feel like the Dynasty need to help bolster this DPS lineup? Because right now you just got Fleta and Munchkin.
Well, I mean, there are a few free agents, but I actually think Fleta and Munchkin are serviceable. It would be sad if they don't get Otto, which is looking more and more likely. Honestly, there's actually a few Chinese players that are rumored to go to other teams that would be pretty good, like Crystal, or Leave, but I think Leave is too young still. I think we figured that out finally. Like, he's like 15 or something. Honestly, like, this team, they're your team. Like, I don't know how to describe how I feel about them other than they overcompensated on tanks and forgot about the other roles, because tank wasn't their only problem. Like, sure, it was a problem. It was a very big problem, much like Dallas had. But you picked up Fisher. Like, sure, pick up one more tank, but why would you sign possibly one of the best tank duos outside of just wanting to not play against them? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. I think Jesse will absolutely play more than Toby, because Toby seemed to have a lot of problems. But we are in a Lucio meta now. Like, Lucio is more prominent now, so we'll see. Like, I feel like if they were smart, they would pick a young Korean player, possibly in contenders, or at this point open division, or heck, go full Jonak and pull someone off the ladder, and kind of mold them to what the team needs, because Fleta is very versatile. So you really at this point need a pure, like, hit scan specialist, and there aren't many of those left on the market, because LA Valiant are looking for them too.
Right.
But Dynasty is a weird one to me. Like, all the other teams we've talked about tonight, I can clearly say, like, okay, I think this could be middle of the pack. This is definitely still a top tier team. Whether or not I'm right, who freaking knows? But I can at least look at them and make, like, a logical guess. But Dynasty to this point, I don't know. Like, if they play Fisher and Zumba, I feel like they would be middle of the pack. If they play Michelle and Marvel, I feel like they would be upper middle of the pack. But overall, like, they could be a top tier team as long as they fix their behind the scenes issues, because Fleta and Munchkin are both phenomenal DPS. Like I said, the meta suits them a little better. Ryuji Honk is going to get to play Ana again. This is a team that kind of confounded me when I was sitting there, looking over the notes today, trying to make, like, my final, points. And the only way I can end it is they'll do better than they did last season, just for the sheer fact that they have more chances to get into the playoffs.
That is a bleak way to look at things, Spider. For me, like, when I look at a lot of the rumor mill right now, there's a lot of top talent that's already been claimed in Korea, who are used underage, who I feel like would absolutely be a sign-in for, Seoul, given the fact that, he was on Lunatic High. Godsby was another standout from X6 Gaming. He's already been claimed. Stitch and Hoxel, both DPS from Runaway, well, they're Vancouver bound, rumored, but that's
Unconfirmed
that's
Vancouver
gonna
bound.
happen. So there's so many like awesome DPS players that have already found homes, and it's just like, well, what exactly are you pulling from at this point? Because a lot of the other really like standout DPS players, like I'll use Sparkle as an example from Element Mystic. He's underage. He's only 16. So where exactly are you to get these other DPS to help strengthen your team? So if I'm Seoul Dynasty, I'm looking at New York and trying to maybe grab Nene or Nanohana, or maybe even trying to see if they're willing to trade someone that's already on their main roster as of right now. But like I feel like right now that's their best bet in order to really help piece everything together. So absolutely right now I'm a little bit worried about the DPS, especially if the auto deal doesn't come through, which doesn't seem like it's going to. But Dynasty are still missing something. This rebuild isn't over, but I feel like the best way to look at it is I'm very cautiously optimistic. I'm looking forward to an Ana meta for Ryuji Han. I'm looking forward to seeing how many, Nano Blades get shut down by sleep darts. And, is that going to be enough to help Dynasty turn things around? Maybe not, but this is going to be a completely new look offense, especially with Fisher on that main tank role. And for me, at the end of the day, it's about how well is the Dynasty going to adapt around the playstyle of Fisher. Because if they're not able to do that, then the timing is going to be off, and a lot of things are just not going to be where they need to be for the Overwatch League. So I feel like a lot of it just boils down to adapting to that aggression that Fisher is going to bring. But if Fisher is able to have, like, the same sort of effect that he had on the Gladiators, you could expect to see, like, a completely different Fleta going into Season 2.
We can hope, right? Because Fleta's the meta until he's not, and then he's just Fleta. But, yeah, I hope they do better because, before all the Overwatch League, before all that, I liked watching Lunatic High. Like, I really enjoyed watching Ryu Jae-hong play Ana. I mean, I have a Ryu Jae-hong jersey. He's the only player jersey I bought. I'm going to rectify that. I'm actually going to buy a Seagull jersey just for the feels. But, I hope they do better. And, as long as they can find some kind of DPS to shore themselves up with, I feel like they're setting themselves up for a better Season 2.
And who I partially blame for the Dynasty's lack of DPS sign-ins? The Shanghai Dragons. That's where all the DPS is going.
Why don't you talk about where all the DPS went?
So, we talked Shanghai to death in regards to Season 1, so I'm just going to jump right in. There are a lot of rumored sign-ins for the Dragons, which are going to be announced. Well, hold on. It's almost... What time... It might even be in a couple of minutes, for that matter. So I'm going to pull Twitter up right now, just in case this drops as I'm talking about Shanghai, because that would be my luck. So Shanghai said that they're going to make some announcements. They made it an hour ago. As a matter of fact, so these are confirmed. There are 6 new sign-ins to the Shanghai Dragons. I don't know how time zones work, apparently, or maybe, whoever posted it prior didn't know how to do them. But anyways, so all these rumored sign-ins that I was going to talk about are official. So, for the Dragons tank line, you have Fearless, you have Kagiri, both returning from Season 1. They have picked up Guardian. DPS, they kept Dia, and then they have signed 3 new DPS players. They've signed Yunjin, DM, and Diding. And then support line, they signed 2 new support players. Got Koma and Luffy. Now, quite a few of these players are coming from Shangdoo Panthera. That's Yunjin, Diding, Koma, and Luffy. Guardian they got from Toronto Esports. DM was one of the standout DPS players over in Contenders China, coming from Lucky Future Zenith. He plays a lot of hit scan. But right now, like, when you look at this roster, there's only one Chinese player on that roster, that being Dia, so this is the Shanghai Panthera at this point, building around that core roster, who were the runner-ups in Contenders Korea last season, but this is a completely new look offense. So really, like, at the end of the day, like, you knew drastic measures were going to be taken by Shanghai. And I'm not really surprised it was to this extent. But it looks like, there is a new YouTube video that was posted an hour ago, so you guys can go check that out. I'll even link you to the announcement in chat while I'm at it, so you guys can check it out. I'm not going to be watching it on stream. But yeah, so these are official. You even have Team Kondu, shouted them out about the pictures being taken. So, they're pretty happy. And, I'm really curious to see what KDP is going to look like in Contenders, knowing that they might only have, one player on the roster at this point, now that they've been completely gutted.
How much would it suck to be that one player? Like, oh man, everybody left. What do I do now? I'm not old enough for another 3 years. But, I had kind of prepped for this roster to be the actual roster when we went into this. So I'm glad that it was confirmed, because this roster looks ridiculous. And it goes back to my previous point of Tavik. When you only have to worry about one player that doesn't speak, Korean, it makes it a lot easier. So the fact that they kept, Dia on not only speaks to Dia's ability, because Dia was kind of a standout in season 1 for the Dragons. Sure, they didn't win any, but he was, the one popping off. He was definitely one of the few that were capable on the team to actually lead them to a win. But the rest of the team is just scary. Like the what did they say on the Reddit? The Shangdoo Dranthera, from basically what they're going to be known as from now on, is ridiculously in a much better place than what they were. So it's easy to put my conjecture out there in the fact that they will do better than they did last season, because they can't possibly do worse. So they will do just as good or better than they did last season. And sure, that is a huge cop out, but it's true. Like they will, I will make the bold prediction that they will win one game at least.
Wow. Wow.
I know. Crazy, right? No, I actually think that of the teams that we've talked about tonight, they could be a playoff team. Like, looking at this lineup, if the coaching staff does what it's supposed to, which is always a huge question mark for Shanghai, could be a playoff team, because they have basically a playoff team in them right now, plus a few extra moving pieces. So, we'll see. But for all those people that picked up Shanghai as a team, root for them to get that one win. I don't think you'll have to root for very much longer.
Now, the real question is, are the viewership numbers going to reflect what it was for, that Mayhem Dragons game, where, they nearly pulled off that win? Or maybe everyone's...
until they win.
Or, people are going to be like, oh, well, here's the new look Shanghai Dragons. Let's all tune in at this point. Because, they could not be any worse statistically.
If Overwatch League was smart, they would lead with, Shanghai versus another team as their opener.
Or, no, I think they would rather put it in, the primetime spot. Be the last one on the opening day.
Maybe open with NYXL versus Philly as their opener.
I could see it. But two things to note about this. One, it kills any hope of Carpe Diem for Philadelphia. Two, this is the second time that Kondu has been absolutely gutted and signed to the Overwatch League. Happened with London, it happened with Shanghai. So, there's something in the water in Korea, specifically where Kondu is.
I mean, that is only good for them, because, man, they're going to have a huge amount of leverage when it comes to player contract negotiations. Not that esports organizations need more leverage over players, but they do, because they can basically be like, well, every player that's eligible has won a championship or runner up and then gone to the Overwatch League. So here's a crap contract, but sign with us, and that could happen to you.
Absolutely. So that is all 12 of the Season 1 teams, all the current rumor mill sign-ins, all the official stuff. So with that being said, I know we're running, longer than usual. Shocker. We've gone through more teams than we did in the past 2 weeks combined. But we will wrap it up tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a positive review over on iTunes. We're always looking for insight on how we can improve the show. If you guys have any suggestions for discussions that you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. We do have our Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcast directory available on our website. And, you can just follow us there at OW Recall. So every Sunday night we release the episodic listings from, all the various Overwatch-related podcasts out there. So check that out. But Spider, we have a number of ways where our listeners and viewers can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
Sure. You can email the show at contact@owlnshow.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at OWLNshow. Website, www.owlnshow.com. Our YouTube is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We put all our shows up there, VODs. We also do, general Overwatch content, so be sure to check that out. There will be a lot of stuff coming up based on what is announced at BlizzCon, which, I will talk more about that in a moment. Discord. Our Discord is discord.me/OWLNshow. You can come in and chat with us. We're one of us is almost always active on there, always up for chatting about Overwatch or whatever else. If you're listening to the audio feed, I would highly advise you to tune into our twitch.tv/OWLNshow or OWLNshow channel. It is midnight here, so it's getting late. We have multiple shows during the week. We have our primary show, which is Overwatch League Network, which is Mondays at 7 p.m. PDT. It is the show you're currently listening to. We have our variety Overwatch show, which is normally Wednesdays at 5 p.m. PDT. That is Heroes Never Die. And then we also do host streams throughout the weekend, generally, one night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We rotate depending on the week and what's going on. Like last week, you had Halloween. So I did Friday nights. You usually do Thursdays. We rotate around and do all kinds of fun stuff. But as we mentioned earlier in the show, Heroes Never Die will be on this week, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. PDT. But next week, we will have our BlizzCon pre-show, which is a mega-sode of basically Overwatch League Network and Heroes Never Die. That will be right here at 7 p.m. PDT on Monday, but then there will not be a Heroes Never Die next week. And then BlizzCon will happen. All kinds of crazy stuff will be announced. There'll be like 7 new heroes, 3 new maps, single player campaign, all that stuff will happen. And then the following week, we will do another mega show, which will be basically the same thing as the previous mega show, just confirming all the stuff I just said. But again, there will not be a Heroes Never Die show Wednesday that week, but the shows will be posted to both of the feeds, and it will also be available on our YouTube and of course as a Twitch VOD. So I know that was a lot to take in. If you have any questions, just go back and join the Discord, and we'll be happy to answer them. You can find myself on Twitter at SpiderGD. Twitch, like I said, I'm right here on Twitch. Our missing co-host, which will hopefully be back shortly after BlizzCon, when Totem pulls him out of the abyss.
Mm-hmm.
You can find Slambo at Slam Overwatch. And Totem, why don't you wrap us up for the night?
Well, I am over on Twitter at TwinlyDrunkCTR, and a quick side note, this Saturday at 7 p.m. PDT, we're doing a Con Before the Stream. Or Con Before the Storm stream. We'll have some of the Overwatch panelists on there. We'll be doing a little bit of Overwatch-themed Quiplash. So that'll be interesting. I'm not sure what the turnout is going to be, so, we might have some spots in the room to play. But, we're always looking for stream participation with that, so you can help with the vote in, all of that good stuff. But it should be a good time. But again, 2 Monday recordings in a row, episodes released on both feeds, so no actual H&D streams the next couple of Wednesdays, except for this current week. But for now, guys, we're going to head out. Again, you've been listening to Overwatch League Network. This has been episode 55. I am Totally Drunk, joined by Spider, and we will see you back on Wednesday for H&D when, maybe we'll talk a little bit about our disappointment of LNL and the absolute crapshoot that is GG Esports Academy. Guys, have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Overwatch League Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at OWLN Show. The theme music for OWLN is the main theme and victory theme guitar remix by Michael Mack.